So the purpose here is to form well-defined requirements. So it's essential that we'll try and put our energies and the resources to try and define the requirements in a well-structured manner. And also in the process, try and start with the high level and the low level designs, both on the technical side as well as on the user interface side of design. So we talk about the wireframes, the overall architectural aspect of the application, and then try and look at some of the aspects of the information architecture, the layouts, the way it should look like, the presentation, the navigation, all of those aspects. So we would try and start looking at these based on the insights that we gathered from the elicitation exercises that we did before. So everything needs to be actually kind of fed through from the insights, the findings, the learnings and the lessons that we got from the elicitation exercises we carried on in terms of the interviews, the workshops, the prototyping, observations. All of those would actually kind of lead us into giving a good insight into what should the proposed solution look like, how should it work, what kind of features it should have, and that's what will be dealt with in the specified model requirements. It describes the practices for analyzing the elicitation results requirements. So essentially what we're trying to say is here, we're trying to get into the further and further into the deep dive analysis of the requirements so that we can get closer to the solution space. So now we are midway in the journey. So we started off somewhere. We started off at the aspect of so we started off with the problem space, where we try to understand the as-is situation, and then we are moving into we have then understood where we want to go from there, the to-be situation, and the journey in terms of where we started is perhaps, let's say it's a 0 and then there's a 10. So now we are at the middle. It's exactly the midway between the problem space and the solution space in terms of getting there. So what are the inputs, the tasks and the outputs for this particular sort of task? The elicitation results would be the key input, and then we would try and take the insights and the findings from the elicitation exercises and the techniques. We would then take that as an input for us to be able to specify and model the requirements. And what does that entail? It would mean that we need to create some kind of modeling standards and notations. It could mean that we need to look at some of the reference structures like UML, Unified Modeling Language, BPMN, Business Process Modeling Notation, and perhaps some of the other methodologies like Rational Unified Process, RUP, Agile requirements like user stories. So all of those. And then modeling tools. There are a lot of tools in the market which help us to create some kind of a model or a wireframe or prototypes, such as iRise, Exure, RP, and Visio, for example. And then on the Rational suite as well, there are a lot of tools like Rational Rows, Rational RecPro, and also going on from there into the open space, open services, open architecture group. They have got a lot of different tools and services out there which are fairly open source. And the requirements architecture would definitely help us with a handy way of looking at how we can structure the whole set of requirements into different categories and how each of them is really dependent on the other. The requirements lifecycle management tools, we've had a look at it, how we can look at all the traceability of requirements from all the way from the sources of the requirements through to the requirements, the design, the low-level design, the code, and then into the test cases and so on and so forth. So the whole set of backward and the forward traceability of that. And obviously the important bit is a solution scope. What is inside the solution that we're trying to achieve? What is scoped in? What is scoped out? And then obviously the tasks that would potentially take the output from here in terms of the requirements, which are specified, which are modeled, which are actually kind of the output from this activity, they would be fed into the further tasks like verification of requirements and validation of requirements. They need to be further verified and validated, which is what would come the next set of tasks that we would discuss. So it's important to kind of understand what is a requirement here. So requirements could be, in terms of the specifications, you're talking about specifications, needs, opportunities, or some of the qualities of your product's features that need to be clearly mentioned and specified. And then it needs to be based and focused on the user needs and the goals, rather than on the technologies or the technical aspects of how you can deliver that. It's not the implementation, the solution perspective. It should be on the customer's needs or the users' goals and how they use the product, the context of usage as well. And then all the business deliverables are referred to as requirements. So it's not there. It's a loosely used term. So when we say requirements, it could be the feature of the system or the product. It could be the user need. It could be the business value. It could be, for example, the change request that came through from the users. It could also be the defect or the bug. Obviously, it's a different type of requirement. That means you should fix that ASAP. So all of these are generally referred to as requirements in the larger context of product development. And outputs are referred to as designs when the specifying modeling activity is focused on a solution. So requirements are on the product problem space, whereas design is on the solution space. So when we talk about requirement, it still is platform independent, technology agnostic. It is not dependent on a specific technology. It is not really defined based on a specific platform like iOS or Android only kind of a thing. Requirement is basically agnostic of the underlying platform, underlying technologies, underlying media, devices, and all that stuff. So it is pretty much like functionality. It is what the user should be able to experience and what the product should be able to deliver as a kind of a functional or non-functional feature. Whereas design, on the other hand, is basically, from there on, if you go a little deeper, dive deeper and try and understand in terms of the implementation of how you can realize the requirement, how you can realize this vision set out by the requirement, that's what design is. So design is essentially the one step closer to the solution space. It's not the solution, but it is actually taking you into the solution. It's like a bridge between the problem space and the solution space. It is actually leading to the solution, but not actually the solution. That's what is a design. And pretty much the same with model as well, whether you call it as a prototype, wireframe, or all of these design, high-level design, low-level design. They're still design. They're still high-level architectural stuff. They're still representation of the actual solution, but they're not the solution, because the solution, which is the ultimate product that is being delivered after you develop and after you test it and thoroughly and deploy on the server, that's potentially what is called the solution, which is actually going into the hands of the users, which they can use to fulfill their need. They can't obviously use the designs or the mock-ups or the prototypes to fulfill their needs, but they can certainly try and use it use these prototypes and models to reflect if they're helping them in solving their problem. So essentially like a model solution or a semi-proxy solution, but not the solution. So designs refer to technical designs of the software. It could be UI design, it could be user interface design, it could be technical design, architectural designs. There are a lot of designs out there. Design patterns, and then there are user experience design, the visual design. There's so many different levels of design. There is human-computer interaction or HCI design. There's so many aspects that design, when we talk about design, it has in its purview. So we need to understand it from that point of view. What exactly are you referring to when you